Russian troops attacked in the Sumy and Kursk regions, including in the Yunakovka area. A Russian military correspondent said that Ukrainian troops counterattacked in the Andreyevka area. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have voiced the situation in the Sumy region. A Russian military correspondent, allegedly linked to the northern group of forces, said that the Russian military command has reinforced and replenished units of the 2nd and 3rd battalions of the 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment by arming soldiers suffering from alcoholism, over 50 years old, who had previously left their units without permission or violated military discipline. These reservists will replace the 1st Battalion of the 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment in the area of Vladimirovka and Alekseyevka. Units of the 76th and 106th Airborne Divisions of Russia are reported to be operating in the Yunakovka area. Units of the 83rd Airborne Brigade and the 137th Airborne Regiment are also operating in Sumy Oblast. Units of the 91st Engineer Regiment are operating in Sudzha district of Kursk Oblast. Alcoholism is also believed to be pervasive among Russian elites. Independent Russian news outlet Verstka reported in June 2023 that Russian officials, politicians and business people were drinking more alcohol to deal with stress. Politicians and members of the elite have become more drunk since the war in Ukraine began. The publication reported, citing people close to the Kremlin, Parliament and regional authorities. Governors are slipping meetings and using illegal substances, one source said. Meetings are being disrupted and people are getting drunk at events. Russia has been labeled an alcoholic empire, and despite Vladimir Putin abstaining from drinking, the influence of vodka politics remains prevalent. Drinking in the military has been a common practice dating back to pre-modern times, as alcohol was believed to provide soldiers with liquid courage. Thus, rations of beverages were commonly issued to the troops. Russian forces in particular were traditionally dispensed a charka of vodka since the late 18th century. However, when abused, alcohol undermines discipline and fighting power, with service members becoming more interested in the bottle than in the battle. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 revealed a severe problem of drunkenness among the ranks, promoting authorities to impose bans on alcohol sales in some occupied territories. However, these measures proved insufficient to curb the issue. Russia has long believed that hybrid attacks remain its exclusive weapon of pressure and that Europe would not dare to respond. But as the New York Times has discovered, governments in several EU countries have begun to take covert action against Russian provocations. This is the first sign that the Kremlin is losing its monopoly on sabotage. The New York Times, citing its own sources, reports that several European countries that are most often subjected to Russian attacks are already conducting covert operations in response. The details are not disclosed, but Swedish Defense Minister Pål Jonson confirmed that this is not only about strengthening defense, but also about actions that complicate Russia's work. Jonson emphasized Russia operates in the gray zone between the Cold Peace and the Cold War. Now, this zone is no longer one-sided. Europe, albeit cautiously, is ready to use mirror methods. Previously, Moscow was confident that its status as a nuclear power protected it from retaliatory steps. Now, even the possibility of using NATO's Article 5 in the event of hybrid attacks is being discussed. The alliance's Secretary-General Mark Rutte said, "The reaction will be devastating. When it comes to hybrid threats, we are not naive. Steps from confiscating Russian assets to increasing support for Ukraine are being discussed. Drone incursions into Poland have forced the closure of airports in Warsaw, Rzeszów and Lublin. Another case of EU airspace violation has been recorded in Romania. European diplomats also link the attacks to an attempt to hack the GPS system of the plane of the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Russia's NATO neighbors are rapidly losing patience, and it is dangerous to underestimate them. These are countries that not only have discipline and selectivity in their actions, but also have the resources, knowledge and technology to carry out sabotage attacks on its infrastructure and economy, even in the deep rear. Today, Moscow has a colossal border with the alliance: Finland, the Baltics, Ukraine. And if the West really decides to use its full potential, Russia will face problems, the scale of which the Kremlin prefers not to even voice. The defeat of the communications hub in Crimea led to a temporary loss of communication between the occupiers and some of their troops. This was reported on the air of the telethon by the representative of the Ukrainian Navy, Captain 3rd Rank Dmitry Pletenchuk. According to him, they hit a communications hub in Crimea, which is located on the territory of the 184th Scientific Research Experimental Base, Sevastopol. Mutual opposition continues constantly. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Crimea, representatives of almost all components of the Ukrainian armed forces, including the Navy, have visited. Of course, this is far from the last target, that is in Crimea. In addition to the fact that there is also logistics there are still control elements there. Despite the fact that the main part of the naval composition has been withdrawn from their main base in the temporarily occupied Crimea, this does not mean that the control bodies cannot remain there further. But this case that you recalled the defeat on August the 11th, this is the control center. This is not the first such loss, Pletenchuk said. He added that the said node is an important element of military infrastructure because communications is the command and control of troops. In fact, Pletenchuk emphasized, this is one of the elements of warfare, and the loss of control, although temporary, significantly affects the quality of task performance. According to the military man, Crimea is technically within the range of the Ukrainian armed forces, but the enemy's counteraction should be taken into account. Therefore, despite the fact that the Ukrainian Navy can technically reach the entire territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, it is not easy to destroy the corresponding targets. The enemy has very densely saturated the peninsula with its air defense. Therefore, some defeats may be successful, but some may not be successful. Therefore, this counteraction still matters. But this does not mean that we are going to stop. The number of objects that can be destroyed in Crimea is quite large. This time it was actually Sevastopol, but this is how we were able to avoid collateral losses. I mean civilians, explained the captain of the 3rd rank. He stressed that this is about Ukrainian territory and Ukrainians, so the defense forces are trying not to hit their schools, and they are succeeding.